Okay, supply chain is the backbone of any industry. But today, supply chain is getting affected a lot due to various calamities like COVID. We had a big calamity of COVID because of which our lead times have gone from 5 weeks to more than 35 weeks, in some cases 60 weeks. So we had lot of effect on our supply chain because we were our most of the components are coming from China, and our effect of this COVID was so high that we had to get into the mitigation factors like diversifying the component industry. So some of them are coming back to us in India and some are going towards Taiwan. So because of the production from there, our supply lead times have come down. Now we have to look at the mitigating factors which are there, which are to be taken for supply chain delays which come up. One of them is indigenization, but how much we can do. And biggest this thing for supply chain, especially for aerospace and defense, is that the limited number of quantities. When we look at for the defense, we look at maybe 10 in a year or 20 in a year, not more than that. This is the biggest threat because we will not be able to get 10 components manufactured in India or in this thing. So we have to look at dual technology items which go into the defense industry. Like for example, I'll give you the example of what we are doing. In L3 Harris Technologies, we manufacture the flight data recorders. The same flight data recorder goes on to the commercial aviation as well as to the defense aircraft. And today, because this is going into both the sectors, we are able to produce more of recorders and we are able to support both defense and commercial aviations together. Also to support the defense aviation, we are encrypting the recorders these days so that the data which is recorded in the flight data recorder is not available to anybody and everybody. Only the person who has the decrypting tool can decrypt the data and make use of the data. The other things which we have to look at is building the reliable, resilient supply chain system. The resilient supply chain system can be built only if we do a proper analysis of the risks available and the analysis of the vulnerability. Then only we can build a reliable supply chain system. The supply chain management and supply chain risk management are diametrically opposite things which need to be catered to while we look at the supply chain as a whole. The supply chain risk management always contradicts what the supply chain management requires. Like for example, supply chain management looks at efficiency, whereas supply chain risk management looks at flexibility, and flexibility is the mere content of the risk management system. When we look at all this, we can develop we have to look at we cannot depend on a third-party supply management system in our lookout, as this cannot help us in getting a reliable supply chain system. With this, I'd like to stop here, and if there are any of those things, I'll take it up later.
How the traditional risk management systems and how enterprise risk management, how do you look at organizational strategy being linked to the risk management? Well, that's where the issue that you've raised here. I think that'd be great if you could cover that. With that, gentlemen, may I now kindly invite Group Captain Mukesh to please come and share his views. He again has served for 25 years in the Indian Air Force and has actually just joined the people like us in the retired fraternity only, taking premature retirement at the beginning of this year. He's from BITS Pilani, a PG in computer sciences, experience in systems on AVAX, MiG-29, electronic warfare, net-centric operations. great vast experience all across the board and held various appointments. Currently, General Manager Strategic Projects in Pinaka Aerospace Solutions in Bangalore. And he's going to look at mitigation methodologies and achieving resilience, maybe touch upon certain aspects of risk management as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank DSCI for inviting me for this talk. And I feel blessed to be part of the esteemed panelists and august audience. The topic which I'll be covering will be mitigation methodology for resilience. As told by the earlier speaker, that the supply chain is very essential part of any industry. It is a backbone, and if somebody thinks that the procurement department or logistics department is the only people who are dealing with it, they are wrong. Each and every person in the organization is part of supply chain. Be it a HR, be it a IT person, anybody part of industry, he is a part of supply chain. So that's why the supply chain is so important. And the way it is growing, now supply chain is not a supply chain, it is a global supply chain. And like aerospace industry specifically, the way it is growing, it is amounting to the complexities and more vulnerabilities. Risks are more as we are growing. So that's why we have to develop a strategy which is resilient. And the key objective of any supply chain is resiliency, agility, and velocity. If these three factors are met, then we are into the business, and that much confidence we bring to our customer and all the people in the supply chain. As covered, the recent global and economical crisis, it has raised a lot of questions, and it has asked us to gear up and to make a strategy so that we are, you can say, we are resistant to it, and in case it is inevitable, then we recover fast. So that is the kind of strategy we should be working with. And technology plays a very big role in this resilience, this strategy, the mitigation strategy for achieving the resilience. Technology such as big data, IoT, the cloud computing, 3D printing, the blockchain, artificial intelligence, these are the technology which actually profounds the exponential effect on the supply chain activities. Like a company which are managing a wide network of partners, the blockchain provides a path to accurate information and in real time and with high transparency. So authenticity and the validity of information is ensured. So these are the technology which should be harping on, and which should be it should become part and parcel of our supply chain activities. As an approach, there has to be, you can say there are two kinds of approach. First is the proactive approach, which is mainly focusing on the resistance towards any crisis. And second is the recovery, which is reactive approach for achieving this resilience strategies. And real-time capabilities should be enabled for fast implementation of contingency plans. And actually a lot of softwares are available which enables this information sharing, the decision synchronization, which are actually paramount and which is very crucial for any best supply chain which we can think of. So the ERP tools, the business intelligence tools, these can be used and this can be leveraged as a part of supply chain activities, and definitely then our supply chain will be more resilient to any kind of mishaps. So computerized planning tools such as material requirement planning, the manufacturing resource planners, ERPs, these are the tools which are generally it is considered by any industry. But now we have to go beyond this, because there are a lot of partners and a lot of tier systems are working, and this visibility has to be there among all. So now a concept like for design agency, like DRDOs, they are working with softwares kind like PLM tool, the product life cycle management tools, wherein from the start, like when the design begins, from there itself, all the products, all the lines are mapped, which supplier is supplying it, those things are mapped. So towards the end of any design, the BOM is generated and all the supply chain, partners are mapped. The PLM also incorporates ERP. Actually, you can say the upstream to downstream, everything is managed with this PLM tool. So DRDOs are harping on this, and it is used across all the platforms nowadays. For aerospace industry, tools like Siemens tools is there called Team Center. By default, there is a tool called Innovia. So these are the PLM tools, and basically these tools brings out the digitization of information, and this information can be used in demand planning, in supply planning, in end-to-end planning, in visibility, supplier visibility. So all these things are taken care. This information is so important. Now to see how strong or how robust is your supply chain software or supply chain process, there are some activities which needs to be done by the concerned people of the industry, and which includes simulation of various kind of contingencies, and the ripple effect can be simulated and it can be checked by using various software tools, and this describes the model and the impact what the other side adversaries can carry. So this analysis will make the system more robust and will bring out the more facts which can be course corrected during the course of business. As I told, Industry 4.0, 3D printing, big data, analytics, blockchain, all these tools constitute a new era that basically quickly finds the way into the business world, and these things has to be used, and this provides the flexible manufacturing system, the sensors, the robotic systems which are part of the process. It ensures that information is available to the process next in line, and through this a timely and cost-effective distribution and manufacturing activities can be undertaken. The IoT can effectively track and authenticate products and shipments, the location of the goods, what is the condition of the good, storage condition, time of arrivals. All this information will be available real time. But this is what is required for any supply chain activities. And IoT with Industry 4.0, this leads to a smart factory of you can say cyber physical system. So these are actually which enables shorter lead time and better capacity utilization. The blockchain can be considered as a disruptive technology, and basically it guarantees the traceability and authenticity of the information, and the transactions are trackable because it is and because it is blockchain, it is irreversible, and the transactions are valid. So that kind of confidence it can bring out to the on plate. DHL, it is example, DHL uses a Resilience 360-degree software tool, which is basically a cloud-based analytical tool, and basically it is used at every step in supply chain planning process, and it enables, what it does is it maps end-to-end supply chain partners, building it helps in building the risk profiles and identify the critical hotspots. So this software brings this kind of, with the analysis, these hotspots are brought up so that you take corrective actions, one takes corrective action, and make the system more robust and resilient. So this was the one example, and on same line, there are software tools which can be used, and it will ensure the strategy what we are aiming for. And then I was telling, like we have to go beyond ERP. Now there is a tool called Multi-Enterprise Supply Chain Business Network. So ERP, PLM, all these are part of. And why we require this? Because now supply chain is, as I told, it is a global supply chain. In fact, now you're not working on a single or two tiers. It is, you have to integrate yourself with the other business partners. So industries are merging, they are collaborating, and that's why the supply chain of these industries who are collaborating, they have to integrate. And this multi-enterprise business network tool provides such facilities. So to summarize, I would say there are three factors which we should take into account. First is strengthen the supply chain management, and we have to improve the end-to-end transparency and visibility. This is first thing, and for that, basically we have to map our upstream and downstream activities, and we have to work in a collaborative way. The production and the production footprint, financial stability, and business continuity partners should be working together. Then we should be minimizing the exposure to the shock. So this could be achieved through the way of, you can say, local supply chain. We have to establish local supply chain. Dependency on foreigners and external supply chain agencies should be minimal, especially if it is a critical item. Then we have to go for greater redundancy. There should not be any sole supplier or single supplier point of you can say the agency. So there has to be greater number of redundancy, and backup has to be there, so that in case one fails, through backup you can mitigate your requirements. Strengthen the physical assets. This is also important in case of in case of natural disasters. This factor will come into, this will play a very crucial role. So you should have a standby option always available from where you should be operating in case that physical assets undergoes some kind of natural disaster stresses. And lastly, if shock occurs, then we should not be, then we have to make a balance between just in time and just in case kind of requirement, which includes very strong safety stock to act as a critical buffer. So we have to have this critical buffer, and we should make it, the point should be that in case any failure is there, then we should not be looking in a wrong foot. And proactively create the ability to reroute the components and flex the production. So these are the quick responses one should undertake if there is a problem in the supply chain. So as a you can say as a point of recovery strategy. So with this I have covered. In case any questions are there, I'll be answering later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Mukesh. I think you've in detail deliberated upon different facets of how the supply chain security, utilization of technology, one for sure. But I think, as I said, there are two aspects to it. One is getting the item in time and getting the right quality. And for that, you've talked about both issues related to how technology can be used in this thing. And you've also given examples of certain cases. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. With that, we come to the last speaker for this session, Mr. Shinto Joseph, who's the Director for Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand operations for LDRA India, a BTech in Computer Sciences, and he's from the College of Engineering in Kerala, and MBA in Marketing from Bangalore, 27 years in embedded software and leadership in safety critical industries. He's been working and collaborating with key industry and government bodies, maintains active affiliation with prominent organizations in the industry. Currently, he's co-chair of Software Engineering Practice and Validation Acceptance Working Groups at the ITSSE Subcommittee and Defense Standards Organization under the Ministry of Defense. Great to have you on board, Mr. Joseph, and he's going to look at the regulatory requirements as well as differentiating IT versus embedded software security issues. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. First of all, thanks to DSCI and Devesh sir for inviting me here. When we are sitting here, you hear some noise outside. That disrupt the proceedings, correct? Now imagine, because of supply chain security issues, how far a country's national security could be disrupted. It is a real national security threat. Now in that context, I wanted to touch base of two aspects. First, I will cover the technical aspects. Normally, when we talk about security, there's a misnomer. People tend to believe it's IT security. Every discussion, it falls into IT security. Shinto, we use antivirus. I laugh. Because that is only a tip of the iceberg. Today, we are living in a world where 99% of the processors goes to embedded world. Whereas when the day I joined engineering in 1990, 99% goes to PC world. So that is the shift of PC versus non-PC. And that has affected the entire industry, including aerospace. Now in this context, when we are looking at supply chain, it is much more dangerous because we just don't know what is coming to us, right? Now if you look at the embedded systems security, broadly I can say there are three aspects. One is the hardware security, the firmware security, the application layer security. Normally people discuss probably the application layer security. And in fact, long back, I happened to meet an American who was involved in developing a virtual PC network for the US defense. I wanted to get that guy to India for as a speaker in one of my conferences. The permission was denied because that is a level of security protection. They give it to a supply chain element for a guy who did the work. Now, I will come to that part also, the US regulation in the same space. So it is very important making sure that we have a separate stringent policy to address the embedded space security, otherwise we are inviting trouble. I think this previous speaker, I think Air Marshal spoke about the drone case, right? A couple of months back, an officer reached out to me, Shinto, I need your opinion on, we have a scenario, there is an investigation against two companies in this space. These are the use cases. I said, based on the available information you shared with me, this is a potential scenario. They would have used an open source code on a Chinese kit where the entry and exit point is known to people. It's easy to hack once you're on the borders because you know where to enter, right? So we need to have a clearly defined policies when somebody is using open source code. The second thing is in the same incident, there was a fake country of origin document also, right? So the laws in this country has to evolve in such a way that, even somebody does such things. Because as a vendor, today I signed two documents. One is I don't share borders with two neighboring friendly countries. I also provide all softwares which are safe and secure. That is the two declarations we give to MOD when we are supplying something. It is not enough. It is still not enough because people are finding loopholes here and there. That means, we need to look at the regulation and implementation part. Now, in that context, I wanted to refer the most stringent regulatory framework. In civil, the regulatory framework coming from an organization called RTCA, Radio Technical Commission for Aeronautics. They define all the safety security standards running for civil space in the entire world. It has got a counterpart called Eurocare. The EASA organization defines that. In US it is the FAA. This DGCA is the counterpart in India. Now civil space is covered by mainly two security standards, especially after the Malaysian airline disappearance. Those two standards are DO 326A and DO 356A. One talks about the overall framework, the other one talks about how this is implemented. It's high time we implement those guidelines also into our country, because to make sure that we are also resilient in line with the global threat perceptions. Now, in addition to that, in US military domain, they have something called CMMC, that is Cyber Security Capability Maturity Certification, right? CMMC. Now, this has got two parts. One is the contractual obligation, the other one is unclassified data declaration. That means even the data there in the open domain also you're not supposed to discuss if you're a contractor. That is the kind of binding that contract brings in. Because why I'm saying is I'm part of a British company where we work with the JSF to Eurocop fighters to all the programs in the world. These companies are bound to follow that. We just don't have such guidelines. In UK, about 12 years back, they came with something called UK Pass. My company was part of that document. I had seen the draft, which clearly specifies if you are a vendor in a UK government program, these are the guidelines you should follow, right? And something similar we should bring in our country. The recent first bill in the civil space is IMA, Indian Military Airworthiness Bill. Some of you would have seen the draft. I was part of the deliberations. It still talks about only the safety implications, repeated offense as a safety violator. I think we need to evolve further, making people accountable legally to put that fellow behind the bars for any of the criminal offenses coming up with the cyber part, because that is more dangerous than the safety implications. Air Force pilot can still eject, but if you have a cyber mole in any of the systems which these guys are supplying. Now the other aspect is, in the Indian context, the regulation aspect is, it's mostly certification is done by CEMILAC. We also have DGUA QA at the production level. CEMILAC has got some guidelines on, actually morning our Air Force friends were here. We are working with them on helping them creating the test framework for secure coding, secure testing from a code level perspective, because it goes up to that level. Make sure that your code itself is secure. The coding is done in such a way that there's no known and entry and exit points. People should be, in India, mornings, and I think the scientists from ADA mentioned that, we don't encrypt the firmware. Foreign OEMs, if you try to decode any of their firmware, forget it. It is what you're getting an encrypted code. So they go to that level to protect their IP. So it's high time we protect our IP, doing the same thing, protect, encrypt our IP before we export, because we also have an export policy right now coming up. CEMILAC is working on that, where you have a new guidelines coming under that. Now, in the same context, you also see the DOS, National Standards Organization under the MOD, where I am the first private sector nominee as a co-chairing two working groups. We need more private guys to enter into that, because we need to sensitize more and more private industry on the implications of following national standards, making people committed to national standards and national interests. Air Force is actually reasonably well placed because of CEMILAC, thanks to CEMILAC and some guidelines. Army and Navy, to be frank, we still have a long way to go. DRDO came with a guideline called DSSD. It is being renamed as, the DRDO is getting renamed as Defense Software Guidelines, Defense Guidelines for Software Development, DGSD. So there is a discussion under BIS. We recently had a meeting with the BIS. Can we make that slowly as a national standard for defense, especially for Army and Navy? So which covers security also, because we have distilled the whole document to create a compliance network. So my submission is that, what you see the tip of the iceberg, the IT security is not the real security as far as aerospace is concerned. It's much more complicated, dangerous if you don't address it from a strategic point of view. Supply chain risk, unless we have real Atmanirbhar, where the critical systems, where we have control on what's coming, sourcing it only from a trusted source with the back-to-back arrangements, I still don't know how to trust, because we live in a zero trust world. Somebody mentioned today's friend is tomorrow's enemy. So we just can't. The only solution is as much as possible, we as Indians should become 100% indigenous capable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for actually making us aware that the problem, I mean, I always thought open source was the best way they talked about for cybersecurity. But now from what I understand from you, that the foundational document platform leaves entry and exit points, something like zero-day vulnerabilities which can be exploited. But thank you very much, Mr. Shinto. With that, I would give the speakers a minute or two in case they want to add something, and then we can throw it open for questions. Would you like to add something? Nothing? Anything? Yep. Fine. I think before people get tired for tea, yeah, we've got questions. Yeah, please.
I'm Commodore Ombatkere. I have been working in the automobile industry for the last couple of years, but the question I have is as relevant to the aerospace sector. When we do threat modeling at platform level, any platform when it is manufactured has a very complex supply chain. It goes down many tiers and it spreads all over the countryside. One of the things we do when we do a threat analysis and a risk assessment is we figure out what the risks are for that platform, or for every component of, or every cybersecurity relevant component of that platform, and we ascribe a risk value to it. Once we get that risk value, we try and figure out a mitigation measure, which could be a security control, it could be a process or whatever, in order to reduce it. But reduction of risk is not the only treatment for risk. There are 3 other treatments. One of them is to avoid the risk, which is normally not done because it involves redesign. The second is to accept the risk, which means if there are certain assumptions you make or it is low enough, you accept it. But the last one is possibly the most important in this context, and that is transferring or sharing the risk. Now, when I build a platform, I may design parts of it, but there are large parts of it I do not design. I depend on my tier 1 and tier 2 vendors to do it. This is true in the automobile industry, and it is as true in the aerospace industry. And what the general process that is being followed now here is that we transfer the risk down the supply chain. So I do not worry about treating that risk, but I hold someone accountable for it. There are processes for that. What is the process that is followed in the aerospace industry? Just a matter of curiosity.
Great question. Anybody else before we get it to the experts to talk about it? Okay. Would you like to take on? Or either of you, whatever it is. Then the other can add on. No, great question. I think you're right. I think have they really formalized the processes? It's a great idea to know about that.
So whatever little I have seen, like transferring of risk is mainly towards financial part, like transferring to the insurance company. If something happens, so the financial component is transferred to insurance company. But generally, in supply chain, there are some backups. What we primarily focus on the backups, redundancies, the capacity enhancements, the redundancy in the capacity, production capacity. So all these factors are generally taken care. Generally, as far as the production activity or manufacturing activities are concerned, these transferring this production or manufacturing to some other company on critical areas generally doesn't happen. Any example you want to give, sir, where you have seen such?
The supply chain risk transfer is mostly taken in case of basically presently we are not doing that in India because we have only one aerospace production which is being done by the HAL. Whereas in other countries, what they do is whoever is the subcontract manufacturer, he's given this thing to he's either given a financial implication or a total whatever is the total production cost, out of which he is made to share a certain portion of it for the delay. One of them is the LC clause. LD clause which is there in most of the companies which are putting it. That is the liquidated damage cause, which the company has to bear it in case there is any delay in the supply. This is one of the clauses which is transferred to the subcontractors.
Can I add? Uh, if you look at global aerospace certification framework, traditionally it used to be product certification. Of late, FAA has given some leverage to process certification. Under that also, there is a provision to delegate your risk. One of the biggest players in the global aviation market tried that, miserably failed. We have a living case study for B schools today. So it's a proven thing that you just can't delegate risk beyond a limit to any of your suppliers, because if something goes wrong, primarily you are the one who take the hit. And you being supportive to the national security backbone, the country also take a hit, right? I don't want to tell the company because they are my customers, but it's a non-factor in the Google. If you Google, you will find all of you know about it. So let us not to do that. I think primary responsibility lies with the prime contractor who wants it. Delegating risk on such aspects is not a viable thing. I agree, in automotive you have the hara-tara processes which we follow, but there also we fight with many of our customers. We reject because they pass all the risk to us. So I said, sorry, you are doing this work. Primarily you should own this. Thank you.
I think I can only give you an experiential thing which I see. I see what's happened to Sunita Williams hanging around there in the space station. Yeah, I mean, Boeing takes the kick here. I mean, his supply chain could be anybody. In the automobile sector, I think you can park your vehicle. In the other cases, you can't park your vehicle. You better be fail-proof. So I think the onus of responsibility will be yours. And I think that's where the supply chain due diligence process, testing, setting up of standards are the issues which I think, Shinto, which I think he very categorically emphasized. That's where we will have to go finally. And today, like Tata's is now moving into the hot parts. I mean, as I said, I'm from an experiential point. I looked at it that for any of the aerospace industry or the aircraft industries, all the hot parts were manufactured either in Europe or they were in America. Rest of the trash was thrown around all over the world, including us, where we were making something for the C-17s or for the Pilatus or tomorrow for the Apache helicopter or for this thing. You were doing the non-damaging or dangerous parts. The hot parts were kept there. So I think somewhere where it came out in the earlier session here, I think as far as critical components will be concerned, that you will have to do it. Like we've done it all along for our encryption systems. We've left it to the DRDO and the defense PSUs to handle that and not the private sector. I think that will have to change. But as he said, now that cannot be done in the aerospace, so you need the private sector. And my reading is that in the private sector, we'll have to follow something like what the Americans have, where you actually have, as he said, accountability of every project or every supply chain provider who gets bound under legal provisions where he's accountable for if there is a failure of part. So, I mean, Boeing might get the bad name, but tomorrow the guy who fingered the issue down below is equally accountable and going to be held responsible. I will end with that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think it's dangerous times to tread into. We already started in tea time, and we've sort of shot over that. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. So thank you very much, sir. Great insights. General spoke about domain expertise is required, the importance of central systems, critical systems. He talked about ESG, specifically sustainability, the green initiatives, how the carbon footprints going forward will take a lot of importance going forward in each sector. He spoke about resilience of supply chain. Then Wing Commander spoke about importance of supply chain, indigenization, building resilient supply chain. Group Captain spoke about resiliency, agility, velocity, authenticity and validity of technology in supply chain. He spoke about digitization of information, Industry 4.0, smart automation he spoke about, which is close to my heart. So very importance of IoTs, the analytics part specifically in the supply chain. And he spoke about how we should go beyond ERP specifically and not just be redundant. In fact, we have to be hot redundant in these sectors. Mr. Joseph spoke about importance of embedded systems, the embedded world, protection of IPs, where we live in the tip of the iceberg. He spoke about setting up standards. So in all the 4 speeches I witnessed one common word that was resiliency. We now understand the importance of how to respond and how we should recover to make our nation safe. As we General spoke about the carbon footprint and the sustainability, and group captain spoke about industry 4.0. I know we are heading for a world which is industry 5.0, where this is a combination of all, which is a combination of smart automation along with the human intelligence that is dealing with the sustainability and the resiliency part. So with this, I think to sum up, industry 4.5.0 is something is a commonality among this and in all the speeches, and this is the world we are heading up to. So with this, I would request Air Marshal Khosla sir to please come on stage and hand over token of gesture to them. So I would request you. Big round of applause for all of them. Thank you. So we'll have a group photograph, sir.